Shanece said that she thought it would be helpful if we came in and talked a little bit more about giving and receiving feedback. This was a topic we started discussing when we talked about authentic communication in the workplace. And so we thought we'd sort of level up and go to giving and receiving feedback 2.0 with some more tips. So when we talk today, we're just going to be giving you a sampling of a variety of techniques for giving and receiving feedback, since it's so important to all of you. So let's go ahead and start with a check-in. I want you to think about a time when you received feedback and it really helped you. It was extremely helpful. Maybe it was something that you didn't know about yourself, or maybe it was something you suspected about yourself, but then once you received this feedback, it actually helped you move to behavior. So let's go ahead and do, there are 16 of us. Let's do this as a breakout. Shanece, do you know how to do the breakout rooms?
I didn't think about asking.
I can go to breakout rooms. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So maybe just do 3 breakout rooms.
Okay, let's see. Okay.
Okay,
Look,
great. So
I'm learning. Yay!
You are learning.
Okay.
So what I want you to do, and when you get into your breakout rooms, is I want you to share with each other a time when you receive feedback and it was really helpful with you. We'll have to be fairly succinct. So this is going to be a 5-minute breakout. So go ahead and share, and then just do a little bit of a round robin. There'll probably be about 4 of you in each breakout room. So go ahead and introduce yourselves if you don't know each other.
Yeah.
Okay. See you in 5 minutes. Thanks, Shanece.
There they go.
Okay. Oh. That's pretty cool.
It's really nice. I forgot though, when we're not the hostesses,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we should have told you at the beginning.
Oh, that's okay.
If you want, you can actually make us the host, or that it's probably just as easy that we do it this way.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have time for a ton.
Lori, did you not get invited to a breakout room?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I just joined because I just had a client leave, so I just had to join real fast. So if you need me to find another place to go.
I'll add it to one. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see.
You did it! Yay! Yeah, it's just the beginning of world domination. Once you know how to do breakout rooms, you're like, go to your room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, somebody is waiting. Let me bring them in. Okay. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
Everyone is in a breakout room, so I'm going to move you to one. And oh, that's okay. We're talking about giving and receiving feedback, and a time that you received feedback and it was very helpful to you. So I'm just going to move you to a breakout room and then bring you back.
Around 12 will probably be.
I think we'll just speed through these topics.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Let's just make it like rapid fire.
Well, everyone has the PDF, so that's good.
Oh, of these notes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
I sent them. Yeah, I think that's going to be helpful if I send them, if whoever we have presenting, if they provide PowerPoint slides, I'm just going to send it to the cohort in advance so that they can prepare.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then they have it for afterwards too. So yeah, that's great.
Are we being recorded right now?
We are.
Hi.
Recording. Oh no, I guess we are being recorded.
Yes, we are.
Well, I'm going to talk about how much I like Anna Kennedy.
Gracie wants to play. You think she'll
I think we can
calm
probably
down?
bring them back. Do you think it's enough time?
Probably.
Yeah, if you give them the 1 minute warning and then close the rooms, it automatically takes a minute to close. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
This
so
is-
should I just put 1 minute left or something along those
Yeah,
lines?
and broadcast a message. Yeah.
I have a terrible sense of time.
I'm not sure we gave them a full 5 minutes, but
It's like an idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
Erin, is your group working today, or is today a holiday for your team?
Our office does have to work today, yeah.
Okay.
This isn't a paid holiday for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if some people took it though, as a day off, but
Yeah.
Well, we were supposed to have this massive snowstorm. We didn't go into the office because, you know, it was going to be another blizzard and there's
right.
not a single snowflake. So
And now there's supposed to be like an ice event tonight, but yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
I think since Trump isn't president, the newscasters just need to start like making something exciting for us to like keep our
And like boring, there's nothing
Yeah.
to like
we have a
fill the
stick-
time.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, quarantining is really boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Ugh,
I don't know. My mom got the vaccine this weekend though. I feel like
that's
it's
great.
So do most of the folks in the cohort have their first vaccines already?
No, I know that we're able to. My company, like we're supposed to be getting the vaccine, but I never got called to go and get it. And then last week I got an email about, I guess they're like out in Lancaster and would I mind going to Lebanon County? I'm like, yeah, I'll go to Lebanon County. Like it's not really that far. But I still haven't gotten called from the office in Lebanon County. So I don't know. I don't even know who they were able to get the vaccine from. Somebody, I'm not sure who is like delivering it, like a doctor's office or something. This is my dog Apollo.
Yeah, we have a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dogs in this presentation.
Add them to
Special
the
guest.
attendance list.
Yeah.
I love it.
If you need another face, there's this one.
Yeah. What kind of dog is Apollo?
He's a Great Dane.
Okay, that's what I thought from his forehead.
Yeah, I have two, so I don't know where the other one's laying down behind me. So
Oh my goodness.
Welcome back.
Look, there's another dog in the meeting.
Shanece, did you close the?
Let me close them. Okay.
Yeah. It looks like some people.
So it'll probably be a minute. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Hi. We have another dog here today. It's exciting.
Hi, Erin.
Shanice, did you say you're going to start adding the dogs' names to the
Yeah, I'm
attendance?
going to add them to the
Yeah,
attendance list. They'll get CEU credits for today.
Yeah.
Yes. Some of the best.
Mine is next to me trying not to bark. I keep muting myself because he keeps barking.
Oh, that's great.
I think dogs are really good at giving and receiving feedback.
Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah, we should talk. Maybe we should ask them. How do you know when to give feedback, Apollo?
Oh my gosh, what a cuddly big dog.
not so good at receiving the feedback though.
Yeah, there's that. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was helpful in thinking about a time that you received feedback and it maybe even transformed you. It maybe even improved your practice. It maybe improved your way of looking at things. So let's just do a quick refresh from authentic communication. This is in your book on how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. As you know, Sarah and I looked at many methods, and we tried to give you all a top 5 methods for giving feedback and for receiving feedback. So for giving feedback, we think it's really helpful to start with a self-check. Am I ready to give this feedback? Am I in the right place? Have I, calmed down? Have I gotten more data? Have I thought through what it is that I want to say? So that's the first part. Secondly, checking in with the other person to find out if they're able to hear it. Are they ready to receive the feedback? And you can say this in your own words. You don't have to say, are you able to receive feedback at this time? But if we give feedback and they're not able to absorb it, it will land on deaf ears, or maybe it will actually cause more problems. So check on their receptiveness. The third is to empathize. So thinking through where are they? How are they feeling right now? What's going on in their world? Fourth is to be as specific as possible, giving the context around the feedback. And the fifth is to move forward. So co-creating a plan for how we're going to move forward together. And so I also want to encourage you all to be thinking about giving feedback, not just as an annual performance review, but in real time, maybe 2 or 3 minute doses, and positive feedback, also constructive feedback that might feel more like a critique. So we also thought about ways to receive feedback.
Yeah, and it has so much to do with our mindset, the way we receive feedback. So number one is being grateful for the opportunity to grow in self-awareness, treating it like something interesting, a curiosity, new data that maybe you didn't have before. And so keeping an open mind is part of that as well. Again, curiosity about what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Number 3, listening to understand, not to respond. This is one that I really latch onto when I think about receiving feedback, because it increases understanding, obviously, but it helps me remember not to be defensive, which is oftentimes, that's kind of my default when it comes to receiving feedback. But if I'm listening to understand, it again shifts my perspective. Asking clarifying questions to get specific feedback is really important. And then I like this last one too, analyzing the feedback for usefulness and applicability. Many of us, I'm sure you can think of an instance right now, I can, where the feedback I received was actually not helpful at all. It was more about that person than it was about me, but I had to step back and think about it and realize, okay, this is just, I can set this aside. It's not like I've heard this a billion times and I need to start working at it. This is more about the other person. So those are the kind of quick points on giving and receiving feedback.
We also presented, when we talked about authentic communication a few months ago, we also presented this idea of using this language, the gap, which we adapted from Crucial Confrontations and Crucial Conversations and some of our own experience about how to talk to people so that they are not becoming defensive, and how to talk to people, how to give feedback in a way where they are being creative and thinking about their own solution, and it's more of a coaching conversation. So we're gonna play this video for you very quickly.
Kedren says to Sarah, Sarah, I need you to put together a one-pager for authentic communication and email it to me. Sarah says, oh yeah, cool, I can totally do that. Cool. Kedren says, can you use the newest draft, the one with our work wisdom watermark? Sarah says, sure, no problem. When do you want it? Kedren says, by Friday, close of business. Does that work for you? And Sarah says, sure. Friday is fine. Notice Kedren was clear about what she needed and when, and Sarah agreed to all the details. But say Friday close of business comes and the one pager is not in Kedren's inbox. Sarah is nowhere to be found. Monday afternoon comes. When she finds Sarah, she says, hey, I noticed that the one pager isn't in my inbox. Did you send it to me? Sarah stops. Oh no, I didn't. This is where the gap comes in. Kedren could say, what the heck? You said you could have it to me by Friday. What's wrong with you? Instead, she says, we agreed you would send me the one pager by Friday. Now it's Monday. We have a gap here. What can we do to close this gap? See how she's demonstrating the gap. It's like, here's a gap, instead of attacking Sarah for her ineptitude. Asking what can we do to close this gap puts Sarah into problem-solving mode instead of defense mode. We're all human and we all fail to meet expectations, but the gap is a kind and constructive way of reshaping behavior to help us all. Avoid resentment and blow-ups by using the gap. To learn more about the gap and other communication tools, you can purchase our authentic.
We're not going to make you watch it again. Okay, so hopefully, maybe you've even had a chance to use the gap. Give me a thumbs up. Has anyone attempted to experiment with this gap feedback? Okay, Clay, A+. All right, that's great. So, the way that we grow is we experiment. So try it out and see how it goes. Maybe ask for feedback on how you gave the feedback, and see if you can grow and refine your skills around using the gap. Clay, when you used the gap, how did it go?
It went good. I mean, I used the word barrier, to know, right now there's this barrier, and how do we work to close that?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? What hurdles are we facing? And how can I help partner with you to figure that out? I found taking that approach usually yielded better results, as opposed to me kind of like hawking out, going, why did this happen this way? And I felt like the language of just saying, here's the barrier, what are the hurdles, how do we partner together to work towards the common goal? And I just felt that really yielded much better results in my time of being an administrator.
Okay, excellent. I love it. Adapt it, whatever works for you. So we're trying to figure out what's the barrier, how do we overcome that obstacle, how do we close the gap, whatever it is that's going to help that other person stay open, stay creative to thinking about how they're going to work through and meet that expectation in the future. All right, we wanted to share a few more ideas with you about giving and receiving feedback, some others that we really like. So we very quickly are going to give you a sampler tray. I'm sorry, my dog is really wants to be in the video right now.
Do you?
So there are 6 quick tips that we're going to give you, and so see this more like tapas. And that you're just being exposed to these ideas. Maybe some of you already know a lot of these ideas. You can either reach out to us and we'll give you some homework, some books to read, or you can do some research on your own. So we're going to look at radical candor. We're going to think about emotional contagion. We're going to think about the neuroscience around motivation, which is SCARF. We're going to think about the difference between referent power and how to actually tap into referent power and expert power in order to give effective feedback. We're going to think about growth mindset and how we manage differences as well. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about radical candor. Can I see a thumbs up for how many of you have either read the book or know anything about radical candor? Okay, so this is absolutely a fantastic book. It's by a woman named Kim Scott. She worked at Google, she worked at Apple, very important in the Silicon Valley world, has a lot of experience in how to motivate people. And she wrote a book, I think it was 2017, called Radical Candor. And her point is really, it's really pretty simple. It's this idea that in order to give feedback that builds the best teams and the greatest outcomes, there are two dimensions that we really need to focus on. One is we must care personally about the person to whom we're giving feedback. We must care personally about them. And we must challenge them directly. And so she's got lots of very funny examples about Steve Jobs, which you can imagine, about challenging directly and caring personally. And once we both care personally and challenge directly, she calls that radical candor, where we are telling someone our perception of how they can get better, how they can grow. We care about them, but we're also challenging them. So she says there are these three other dimensions that if we just care personally about someone, but we don't challenge them directly, it will be called ruinous empathy. So you may think back to a time where you had to give someone feedback and you cared about them very much, but you didn't challenge them directly. And it was actually not helpful to them. So it was empathy, but it was ruinous. It didn't help their career. It didn't help their work with their clients. There's also this dimension of if you don't care personally and you don't challenge directly, she calls it manipulative insincerity. But there's also this dimension of if you challenge directly, but you don't care personally, it's obnoxious aggression. So really we want to continue to try and stay in the radical candor zone. We want to talk with our teams about this 2x2. We want to talk about how can I get up into the radical candor space so that we have the highest productivity. All right, that's one tip.
All right, next, I want to talk about this idea of emotional contagion. And again, when it comes to giving and receiving feedback, it's really important to make sure that we do it, because when we don't, sometimes we're repressing like how we really feel or think about something, and it still comes out in some way. And so Tony Schwartz wrote an article pretty recently in Harvard Business Review about the importance of recognizing as leaders, as coworkers, as colleagues, how contagious we are when it comes to our emotions, and really recognizing that. So some of the things that he talks about, it's interesting. It's related to emotional intelligence and how much of an impact that has on our work and our relationships. But he notes that it's really important to recognize that the emotions that people bring to work is as important as our cognitive skills. So when we think about that, recognizing that the way that we come to giving or receiving feedback dynamic, not just the logic part, but also how we bring our emotions to that is gonna matter. The emotional intelligence skill of self-awareness is also really important. That's one of the other points of his article. So recognizing what upsets us, what frustrates us, and so that when we see that coming up, we're able to manage it much more easily. But also being able to recognize it in our coworkers as well. He talks about, and this is, you can see in the title of the article, that negative emotions spread really quickly and they're very toxic. And so, you know, Kedren and I did a video about toxic positivity. So on the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to fake that, but recognizing that if there's overly negative emotions running high, then it can be really hard on the entire organization. to that, he speaks about the importance of learning to use self-regulation, which we talked about in authentic communication, in order to be authentic, but not infect others with our negativity. And then he also talks about this notion of realistic optimism, which I love that term, realistic optimism, where we recognize that we attach the best possible story to an outcome, but one that's not totally out of place that it could possibly happen. That is a very brief summary of that, but the biggest takeaway is recognizing how contagious we are.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more thing to this. So there's a book that if this idea of emotional contagion is interesting to you as a leader, you may be interested in reading the book Resonant Leadership. So Resonant Leadership is a book by Richard Boyatzis from Case Western Reserve University, and it's informed by his work with Daniel Goleman, the father of emotional intelligence. And it's this idea that as leaders, we are contagious. Our emotions are contagious, more contagious than others in the organization that have less power. So in order to resonate, putting out vibrations that then come back, we have to go through something called the renewal cycle. So only by managing our emotional contagion constructively are we able to create the kind of cultures where people have optimal growth and creativity and engagement. So we could talk about open loop limbic systems all day long and emotional contagion, but if this interests you, I would say resonant leadership is something you might want to follow up with.
Yeah, and we don't have time today, but the questions on the screen are ones that you might want to consider. You know, how do you see emotional contagion play out on your team pre-COVID and during COVID, working remotely? And, you know, thinking about too, when do you find it easy for you to manage your emotions versus when is it really tough? So, so keeping that in mind, as one of the tools. The next one I want to talk about is so fascinating. We could spend the whole session on this. It's the work of David Rock and his colleagues on SCARF. So he was really interested in motivation. And so when it comes to giving feedback, especially knowing the motivation of who we're dealing with can be really key. But what Rock and his colleagues found sort of across the board is motivation is made up of these components, these 5 components. So the first one is status. And status speaks to, as it says here, our relative importance to others. So if we have a sense of that, that taps into what motivates us. Certainty is also a part of employee motivation. So knowing, being able to know and predict the future, even if it's in kind of a small way, can help with our motivation. So again, this is all neuroscience. So it's what really is triggered in our brain. If we sense that we have a place in our organization, if we feel like we can pretty much predict the future in some way, shape, or form, we feel motivated. And then interestingly, and this is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, is autonomy. So if we feel like we have some respect, if we feel like we're autonomous in the work that we do, some kind of control, even small gestures that show that we have autonomy can be really motivating as well. I don't think any of us are surprised by relatedness. So again, when we are around people we don't know, that triggers in our mind, like stranger danger, where we start to put our defenses up. But as we grow in connection, as we relate to others and become more familiar with them, that tends to up our those positive feelings, and we're more comfortable, and so our defenses go down. And this is also part of motivation. We feel much happier. And the last one's really interesting too. Again, part of the neuroscience here is when we sense that our organization, the way things are run, it's fair. And so again, we feel good about that. We feel motivated. Employees report that they're so much more likely to stay with organizations when they feel like it's run fairly and things are done fairly. Now, some of these, it's perception as well too, that can be relative, but when you understand these simple neuroscience components, it can help us frame our feedback so much better, and also understand if we're receiving feedback, why we might be responding the way that we are.
I think it's a really healthy activity to think about a time that you were giving someone feedback and it didn't land.
Yeah.
And you were confused and maybe frustrated, and you tried and tried and tried, but you didn't really have any luck with helping this person transform their behavior. So I think it's a practice that you can go through SCARF, and you can think about, well, does this person have clarity about their status? Does this person have a sense of certainty? Have they been given autonomy? Have I done the work around relatedness? Am I building that space between us so that there's a positive contagion there? And does it seem fair? Do they think that there's a sense of efficacy here? If they put energy in, will they climb? So if you get to one of those letters and you realize, oh my gosh, I've given them zero autonomy on this, or maybe there's a sense of maybe we don't have that relatedness, or maybe there's a sense of inequity here, then double down on that. And then you can see if you can move the needle on that feedback and see if that feedback starts to land. So when you think about that, any thumbs up from anyone who feels like, yeah, when I start thinking about someone I'm trying to give feedback to and it's not landing, and I think through these elements of SCARF, I get to a place where I start ding, 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 ding. I think I found it. Anybody have one of those moments when you start to think about SCARF? It may take a little more time to dig into. And maybe you're just not having any negative, maybe you're having great relationships with everyone. So that might be part of it.
All right, let me quickly talk about growth mindset. I really love this when it comes to getting and receiving feedback, because when I have a growth mindset, I'm so much more willing to handle difficult things. So remember, Carol Dweck, the social psychologist, really discovered this phenomena of when we are able to frame obstacles, problems, difficulties as a learning opportunity. So it's a way that we are able to grow. And so if we can frame our feedback, if whether we're giving or receiving it in this way, it makes so much more sense. It makes us so much more eager, curious, and willing to take it on when we have this particular mindset. Can I get a thumbs up for those of you that have heard of Carol Dweck's work and growth mindset before? Anybody? Okay, we got a few. Yeah, if you, again, I could spend so much extra time on this, but if you are interested, email me. I can send you the link to her book, Mindsets, and to learn more about this, because whether you're receiving the feedback, so you have to put yourself in that growth mindset, or you're coaching somebody to adopt this mindset, it will help you have so much success. All right, let me move on to types of power. So I know that the word power can have a really negative connotation. What's interesting is the psychologists John French and Bertram Raven discovered that there are many different kinds of power that as leaders we often rely on, but there's only a few that seem to be the most effective. Coercive, legitimate, reward, and informational, they work, but they're positional in that if you have power, you're able to bestow, whatever it is that you want. But the last two, expert power and referent power, are personal. So it doesn't even matter if you're the boss. You can still utilize expert power or referent power. So very quickly, expert power is when you have been able to show that you know the most about something. So you're relied upon. People go to you as this person, you're the expert in this particular thing. And so again, anybody can adopt that. Referent power is probably the most influential type of power there is, because it has to do with people's perception of your credibility and also your magnetism. So a lot of times we think of this as really gregarious, outgoing people, but it doesn't mean that necessarily. It just means that people with referent power we're drawn to. We want to do things that they are asking us to do. So when you can utilize referent power, then it's so much easier to give feedback because your direct report, they're much more interested in helping you out. So it becomes more of a collaboration. So if you're interested in this, please reach out. I can give you a little bit more information. But it's something it's very workable. It's on us to really up that referent power.
Yeah. So referent power is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of power, like Sarah said, we can develop it. We can hone it on our own. It comes from depth of character. It comes from consistently making good decisions year after year. When we have referent power, people are interested in our opinions. If we suggest a restaurant, they'll very quickly say, yes, I'm going to try that restaurant. So it's that kind of power. So when we're giving feedback and we're coming from a place of depth of character and that kind of respect that we get from many, many years, people are more likely to take our guidance. It's more like guidance than feedback. And so it lands. And so it is sticky, that feedback. And so, so continuing to think as a leader, how do I develop this referent power over time so that when I am sharing my feedback with others, it really, in fact, makes a change in the life of the other person.
Any questions about the types of power? Is this familiar to you? All right, makes sense to everyone? Okay. All right, Kedren is going to take us through our final tool.
So one more tool that we wanted to share with all of you today is this idea of knowing how we manage differences, knowing what our predisposition is to managing differences can absolutely help us when we are delivering feedback. So you may be familiar with this tool called the Thomas Kilmann instrument. It's a tool for measuring how we manage differences. So it's not fixed, but it is point in time, and it can help us quite a lot in learning about ourselves. That self-knowledge that then seeps into our self-awareness, awareness that allows us to readily change our behavior. So the tool itself has two dimensions. When we think about managing differences, we're thinking about, I want one thing and somebody else wants something different. And so we can be both, we can think about this in terms of assertiveness, and we can think about it in terms of cooperativeness. And I'm going to just move through this quickly because I know we covered this in authentic communication. So you can choose to be unassertive or highly assertive. And none of it's wrong, and none of it's good, and none of it's right. It's just situational where you decide to show up. You can decide to be uncooperative, or you can choose to be very cooperative. Again, neither good nor bad. It's all situational. So then we end up with 5 different styles. We can avoid, we can accommodate, we can compete, we can compromise, and we can collaborate. And when we're giving feedback, it's helpful for us to know which style we tend to have on heavy rotation, because then we can recalibrate to what that individual needs. So if in fact we know that we are a high competitor by nature and that we will come right out of the gate very assertive, maybe sometimes even aggressive in giving our feedback, and we know that the person who we are giving feedback to is someone who may go to the withdrawn stance. They may have lower self-regard. We may know something about them. We may decide to turn down the dial on our assertiveness so that we can meet them at a place where they can hear what it is that we need to deliver. So just knowing this about ourselves can help us to recalibrate. We also have to be aware of the other party, and we have to think about how will they optimally hear this feedback. So then you can think about which of these styles is optimal for delivering feedback to that individual. So if in fact we stay in the unassertive space down here and avoiding and accommodating all the time, it may be up in that ruinous empathy quadrant that Kim Scott talks about. And unfortunately, no behavior will change if we are unassertive in not sharing that feedback. So on the other hand, if something is not really important, then we can absolutely stay down here in avoiding. You know, there are definitely times that we have a thought that we don't necessarily need to share with the other party in giving feedback. So obviously part of leadership is learning the difference between when is this something that I need to share, that I need to be assertive about, so that this colleague of mine or this direct report can truly grow and flourish. So, so that's the last technique that we wanted to introduce to you today in this quick 2.0. You know, we wanted to refresh your memories a little bit about giving and receiving feedback. We wanted to refresh your memories around the gap. We wanted to give you some new tools around thinking about radical candor, thinking about emotional contagion, thinking about the neuroscience of how we motivate others, SCARF. We also wanted to introduce this idea of mindset and fixed versus growth mindset to you, and how do we help people move to a growth mindset so they might be more receptive to receiving feedback. We wanted you to think about the types of power, and as leaders having referent power or expert power so that your feedback would be more effective. And then we also wanted to make sure that you were thinking about how you manage differences and how you recalibrate how you manage those differences so that that feedback will optimally land. So we wanted to just check in with you about, we knew that was quick, but we wanted to check in with you about any of those techniques, tips that we just shared. First of all, do you have any questions about those techniques, those tips that you'd like to ask or bring up for the sake of the group? Okay, when you think about the quick tips that you just learned about, oh, was there a question?
Kristen, did you have a question real quick?
It wasn't a question, it was more so a comment that came up in the breakout groups, especially with the SCARF model. That's completely new to me. I actually have not heard of that before, but I was sharing an example of receiving feedback, and our group in particular, we brought up how important like trust was in doing so in each of those aspects, like status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness. All of that comes into trust, and how much we're able to receive the feedback and actually then turn it into action. So I just kind of wanted to share that comment that came up in our breakout group.
Yeah, that's extremely important. Of course, trust is the basis for relatedness, part of that neuroscience, the R in SCARF. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. I'll share it real quick because maybe it'll help you. I think it was the March-April issue of Harvard Business Review, Frances Free, a professor at Harvard Business School, shared her research on trust. And it's this very simple idea that we call it the trust triangle, that there are 3 drivers of trust. And maybe you're already familiar with this. So authenticity, if someone doesn't seem authentic, we will lose trust in them. And then to Kristen's point, we'll probably not take their feedback. The second driver of trust is logic or judgment. So does that person have sound judgment? Are they logical? Are they in fact reliable the way that they think? If they have a judgment wobble or a logic wobble, we'll start not trusting them. And so we're not going to take their feedback. So when we analyze it for usefulness and applicability, we'll probably be like, maybe not. And then the third part is empathy. The third driver of trust is empathy. So do we believe that person has our best interest in their heart? So when you're thinking about giving feedback, thinking about trust and thinking about, am I in fact trustworthy? Does this person trust me? Do they think I'm authentic? Do they think I have sound logic? Do they think I have their best interest in my heart? They'll be more likely to take my feedback. Thank you. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to bring up around something that you've noticed around when people receive your feedback? What might be going on that makes it particularly sticky? I think if there's one thing that we can do to improve giving feedback, it's focusing on the relationship. So the new book we're writing right now is called Relate, and it's all about how do we build relationships in the workplace so that they are trustworthy. And so when we are giving and receiving feedback, it's because we're trying to help each other flourish, and we're all growing together. So that would be my very short answer, would be focus on the relationship. It's relationships the whole way down, right? And you all know that more than we do as therapists in your field. So Shanece, I think that we gave you enough minutes so that you can share a little bit about the assignment. Are there any questions for us before we let you go? Anyone want to tell us if you're going to experiment with any of these techniques? I'm seeing Corey nod her head. Corey, which of these quick techniques that we shared do you want to start playing with, experimenting with?
I'm definitely going to look at SCARF. That's something that I'm not familiar with either. And even though this was kind of an add-on, that whole trust triangle really put some things into perspective for me, because I find myself, I'm in a position where I feel compelled to give some feedback to someone that I don't know that I really have a strong relationship with, and I've been struggling with it. And I think this is really good for me to self-reflect on where I'm coming from and where they are before I do that. So this was like perfect timing for me.
Good. I'm so glad. Kristen, thank you for bringing it up. And Corey, I'm so glad that it was helpful. So we can use the trust triangle in a few ways. We can think as leaders, where are our wobbles? She calls them wobbles. I love that. Where are wobbles? Maybe I have an empathy wobble. Maybe I have a logic wobble. I'm overly optimistic, so I definitely have an logic wobble. And then we can also use it to diagnose. the relationship. So in the relationship, if things are not really as solid as we want them to be, we can use language that's not trust. Trust is such a massive word and it's got a lot of baggage. So we can talk about empathy, or we can talk about judgment, or we can talk about authenticity, and it doesn't feel as heavy as saying, I don't trust you. So great. Anyone else willing or interested in experimenting with any of these techniques? We heard Corey's thinking about SCARF and trust. John Frayne, you have a contemplative look on your face. Which one are you thinking about experimenting with?
Let's see. Is that better?
We can hear you.
No, I was looking at the managing differences, and I think sometimes I wander back and forth between a couple of them, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, how can I do this better where I meet people I'm working with where they're at, not just what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, it's so fantastic because it's not fixed. So much of life is fixed, but this is not. So we can absolutely climb up and down that dimension of assertiveness, climb left and right along that continuum of cooperativeness, try and understand, where's that other person? Okay, well, I need to shift here so that they can hear me. Okay, so John's gonna experiment with that one. Maybe one more person, anyone? Amy, you're smiling. Is there one that you want to experiment with?
The trust triangle really stands out to me. I think in all professional relationships, like as we're working with clients and as I'm relating to my supervisor and upper management. So yeah, really calling on that trust triangle and thinking about what's driving the trust, and is the foundation there for there to be any growth for us to receive one another and what we're saying.
Fantastic. Well, we do a lot of work around trust. So I have an article that I wrote maybe 6 months ago about trust. So Shanece, I'll send you that article. It does address the trust triangle and some research that we did, and how to repair trust. So I'll send that over. And if in fact this is a topic that would be helpful, maybe if Shanece has any openings on the dance card in the next couple of years, we can come back and talk about trust. So it was really nice being with all of you today, and keep doing great work. And we're glad to know you're out there.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes,
oh, we'll see you soon. Don't think.
Okay.
I have some dates in mind.
Okay.
We will see you pretty soon. And when you send the article, I will send it out to the cohort.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And
Thank
any
you.
other material that you want to send, I'll make sure that they get it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, I'm just going to jump in here quickly just to go over a little bit about the cohort presentations coming up. They do start next month, and I know some of you might have some questions on what's expected or what's needed from you before you present. So I'm just going to share my screen. Please bear with me because it's a noisy block, and sorry, it may take a minute to pop up. But in the meantime, Yeah, we have cohort meetings starting next month, and they go towards the end of this cycle year. And so what is needed from the presentations? And I'll send out this document that I made up to reference for those who are presenting soon. So we are going to need a title of your presentation, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Can you guys see that? Can you see that document on your screen? No?
You might have to unshare and then reshare. Sometimes when you open a document, it won't show on the screen for some reason.
Okay, thank you. Let me try again. Sorry. How about now? No? Yes, you can see it? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so the presentations, okay. So they are 30 minutes long. We're gonna need a title. We're going to need 3 to 5 learning objectives. And if you need help creating them, I can help you, or Anna can help you with that. And we'll use those learning objectives for the Survey Monkey for the evaluations. And then an agenda. You don't have to do breakout sessions. You don't even have to have a PowerPoint presentation. That's all up to you. And just a short bio of whoever is presenting with you. So if it's a supervisor, we'll need a bio for them. And if it's a cohort, a supervisee or a fellow that's presenting with you, then a short bio for them as well. So I have a presentation schedule. And you can present on whatever you feel like will benefit the cohort. So if you want to present on ACEs, if you want to present on anything that you feel is important for the cohort, if it's telehealth, if it's play therapy, I know a lot of you are doing children therapy, like whatever you feel like will benefit the cohort. You might think that your topic isn't relevant or it won't get approved for CEU credits, but Millersville University, they're going to accept anything within the profession. So as long as it relates to counseling, therapy, social work, anything that you think of, it's going to be accepted as a CEU credit. They're not picky about what topics you choose, as long as you feel like it's relevant for the cohort, if that makes sense. Sorry. Okay, I'm just reading the chat. What was the time frame again? The 30 minutes presentation, and they start next month. So if you don't see your name on the presentation schedule, then you still need to schedule it, either do the doodle poll that I put out or just emailing me. Now I know a couple of changes have been made, like we included May. Before we just had April and then we skipped to June, but there are 3 to 4 organizations who still need to present. If you're not on the list to present in this time frame, we're going to move it to the next year cycle starting in July. So you will present in August or September or November. We'll just pick up where we left off, if that makes any sense. So if you're not on the list, or even if you feel like you need more time to prepare, I can change your time to the beginning of next year's cycle, which starts in August for us, if that's what you need to do. So I will send this out to everyone, and this list is something that Anna and the Talent Pipeline Committee, they thought of the different ideas that you guys can present on that might be beneficial for the cohort. So by no means do you have to pick from this list of bullets at the top. You can choose something else to present on. Those are just examples, ideas for you. But I will need, before your presentation, maybe a week. I like to send the material out like a week before the presentation. So a week before the presentations, if you're scheduled to present, if you could just give me the list underneath the CEU credits. So I would need everything listed. If you're using PowerPoint slides, just so I can share them with the cohort during the meeting. And all the other things are needed for the CU credits and for the evaluation. So that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them. I hope it makes sense. It's by no means this is supposed to be overwhelming or, frustrating or anything. You just choose a topic that you're passionate about, that you specialize in, that you want to present to the cohort. 30 minutes, doesn't have to include a PowerPoint presentation, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And we'll encourage you to include your fellow, with this presentation. So if an organization has more than one supervisor, only one supervisor and a fellow pair has to present. So if you have more than one supervisor, you just choose one of the supervisors to present with a fellow or to present, with whoever else you want to present with. But all 3 supervisors don't need to present, or all 2 supervisors don't need to present, if that makes sense. Just choose one. If there are several supervisors, okay. So yeah, Amy, 1 presentation per supervisor. Yes. And so our next year's schedule will look similar to this year. There may be some rollover cohort presentations, but we will incorporate outside organizations to come in, and then we'll start the cohort up again like springtime, the same kind of outline that we did this year. So in the fall, we started with work wisdom and outside presentations, and then we went into cohort presentations. We're going to do the same thing this cycle around. Okay. Our presentations to be focused on child. Ideally, yes, Lori, we would like it to be focused on child and adolescent mental health. Does anyone else have any questions? And if you want to meet with me before your meeting, I'll be happy to meet with you. Thursday mornings are my open day, and I can make myself available whenever.
Shanece, I just had a thought that it might be helpful if people do know a general topic that they could share it just to avoid repetitiveness in that area. That they were getting a variety of different discussion opportunities.
Okay. Yeah, does anyone have a topic in mind and they're looking to present it? If you want to share that with the cohort, just so we're not presenting the same topics to one another. If you have one and you want to share it with me, I can put it on the form that I have and just list it next to your name so that everyone knows. And I would like to send that out as soon as possible so people aren't starting on their presentations and then realize that it's already going to be discussed. So if you want to share it with me as soon as possible, I want to send out this material by the end of the week. So no, I mean, if you're not sharing it till June and you haven't even thought about it, just let me know as soon as you know what you're presenting on, and I'll make sure the cohort knows that as well. I have 2 names, and if anybody knows them, I need their email address. Okay, Corey, thank you. I need their email address. They was on the last cohort meeting, but I don't have their email address. So if you know Danae Hershey or Rebecca King, if you can put their email address in the chat, and if you can let me know if they're a supervisor or a fellow, I can add it to our master list.
Shanece, I know Rebecca King. She is one of my fellows. I will have to look up her email address. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Put it in the chat. Can I just forward it to you through an email?
Yes, please. I have her her certification from last month.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Danae Hershey. I'm not sure what organization she's from. Corey? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'll make sure I add them to our master list so I have them for the future. So our next meeting is March 15th, same time, same place. And I'll have the information from Work Wisdom that Sarah was sharing with us. And then I'll have this document that I just shared with you guys. I'll also have the recording of today's session along with the evaluation link for those who couldn't make it. Okay? Thank you, Corey. Any other questions or comments or thoughts? All right, I'll let you guys go and look out for your certifications. Go ahead and complete the evaluation and we'll see you next month. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your
Bye.
day.